over to you, Chair.
Good. Good morning, everyone. Morning, councillors, good morning, councillors, staff, anyone else who's watching the meeting. And let's get straight into it. I don't think we've got any apologies. Are there any declarations of interest? If not, we'll move to the confirmation of previous minutes, errors or omissions.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Holding, seconded Councillor Norman. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Carried. Anything arising that wants to? Good. We'll move on to item 4.1, draft policy on drinking water quality. Mr. Jorgensen.
Great. As part of the improvements to the drinking water regulation in New Zealand Inc., one of the new requirements is an update on our water safety plan framework. The team have been working, or actually the New Zealand team throughout most councils in New Zealand have been working on updating their water safety plans over the last about 12 months or so. And I believe the first water safety plan has just been approved. AC,
yeah.
One of the first plans have been approved using the new framework. It's been quite a rigorous process, and there's been a number of new requirements that we have needed to work through to show that each of our water supplies is got plans in place to be able to respond to issues that may arise. So they're quite bespoke to each water supply, and there's a lot more work required actually to show what we would do in different scenarios. One of the requirements of the new framework is commitment at a governance level, and each council is required to show its policy on drinking water quality. Well, here today. That's on page 9. That starts on page 19 of the agenda, and the policy on drinking water needs to show council's commitment to a number of the aspects that are now required in the new water safety plan. So we've put this together for you. This is quite similar to a number of councils around New Zealand, and it's now here to your consideration. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Mr. Casey?
Yeah, through the chair, for sure. But this isn't something new that, as such, the policy is, but we've been committed to upgrading water supplies to comply with the drinking water standards for the last 16 years. So this is documenting a formal part of what we're required to do to include in our water safety plans. There shouldn't be anything new. We brought a interim water quality statement to council in September 2019 and worked through that with you at that time. I don't believe there are any significant concerns, and this just builds on that.
So, any questions?
Yeah, Marty, with the proposal put forward by the central government regarding possibly and ultimately take over, since what they're able to do, how do you see investment in the infrastructure to the extent that you'd like to be doing, and reflection of what they might do if they take over?
I think Waitaki's in a really good position because we have been proactive, and we have had pretty poor water supplies qualities to start with. So we've been upgrading periodically, systematically through the years. The investment that councils put into it, I think it puts us in a good position. I'm sure there's other people around the room who may want to comment further on that.
Just on a new clarification, so it's not government taking it over, those are issuing instructions, but the actual entity whatever the entities might be, to one of the models is potentially a CCO, control organisation shared by whatever participating councils are in that particular region. There's talk of councils having a shareholding in that, so there's still probably potentially going to be links through to it, but yeah, it hasn't been determined exactly what it's going to look like. And equally, certainly nationally, we have taken the approach that councils can opt out still. It's been an important part of it. Councils can still make their own way in the future if they wish to. But, yeah, it's a big unknown, and that's an ongoing discussion which the steering groups involved in at the national level. So see how that all works out. The main thing is, though, at the end of the day, whatever we do is there to benefit our community, and if it's going to be good for our community, we should just get on and do it.
Just on page 16, the last two paragraphs there, you've talked about clauses 1 to 12, which may make arrangements such as corridor water, I guess, not easy. And we may look at reading these clauses. Obviously, there's a government that a direction we're heading in through, thanks to central government, which may make that arrangement untenable. Is it, I guess, preemptive to be looking at this right now with recognition that whatever we're putting through is probably not going to actually align with what we're doing? Or is this, you seeing this as something that we move towards? I'm just sort of interested in timing and how corridor water fit into that.
Sure. So the timing of this, we need to box on with this, so we water safety plans done for like all of our water supplies, including corridor. So the corridor are quite a small percentage of our entire people we service, and we need to box on with the other water safety plans.
Yep.
The ones for corridor we're still working through, and yes, we do need to have some discussions with corridor about what their future contribution is and how they fit into our package. But we're not able to have that conversation just yet due to other priorities. But we need this still approved for our district.
Yep.
And corridor we will be having discussions with them in the not too distant future. We've had some initial setup discussions about what we do next, but we're just asked about on that's still but it will.
Thank you.
Drawing up the water safety plans is going to be a big test for corridor, and they're aware of that themselves. Okay, anything further on the paper? If not, someone get a move to receive it.
This is a resolution.
A resolution.
So approves the draft.
Okay, so the recommendation, someone can move the recommendation. Councillor, second, Richard. Any discussion at all? If not, all of those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. That's carried. Move on to page 2.
This is just information to receive report, and as a result of the 2018-19 National Performance Review. So it is a little bit out of date now. However, they do take a lot of time to come through our system for us to pick up to. So some pretty good reading in there that I think gives a good outline about where we sit. We sit in New Zealand Inc. again, and but I think really shows the work we're doing in the water space is meeting many of these issues that have been raised, and of course we're not alone in them. So again, Mr. Page, if you'd like to add anything to it, or otherwise open for questions.
Yeah, I'm just open for questions as much as anything. Just answer anything you have for us?
The fire hydrant discussion, we're sort of saying that it's not our role and we don't do it. But on page 30, they've put that release of the revised code may provide opportunities for Waitaki to increase its hydrant testing. It just feels like you're on totally different pages. Can you just expand on that a wee bit?
Yeah, through the chair. The New Zealand Fire Code requires the fire service to test a portion of fire hydrants every 5 years. For some reason, that hasn't occurred in the Waitaki district. We are intending to engage with the fire service to find out why that hasn't happened. The last meaningful discussion we had with the fire service was 8 or 9 years ago. Our focus had pushed from these sorts of things to drinking water upgrades. So we will move back to working in conjunction with them.
And just one more through the chair, if I may. Back on page 23, when you talk about your opportunities for improvement, you talk about the opportunities to invest in professional development staff, which is fantastic. But then on page 38, have I read it right that we are putting quite a huge amount of staff training hours in comparing to other areas?
Page 38.
So I think that's part of our. I haven't looked at these numbers in detail, but I think it's part of. We've got quite a young team, and staff going through the diploma program in Polytech in Otago. I don't know any other councils have those sort of programs, but there's obviously quite a time-consuming number in itself, and also had quite a few. I guess we're fortunate to have quite a few younger staff in the team who we've been developing through. So some other councils have struggled with an older workforce who have done all the training, whereas we're actually the other way around. More team, quite a fresh team who's and that does take quite a few hours. So,
yeah,
I see that's quite a positive.
Definitely. I would have put it under the opportunities for celebration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's all. Thank you.
Tom, Councillor Walston.
Yeah, thank you. Just on page 23, talks about water and wastewater charges present significant affordability challenges for some of New Zealand's lowest income earners. I see in Waitaki we're slightly under $850 per year. The most expensive jurisdiction, the average customer will pay the water and wastewater bill of over $1,700. So we're only half the average. Is there any likelihood that our costs will rise if we are only half of the national average? Well, sorry, not half the national average, half of the highest jurisdiction in the country.
Yeah, definitely. That's the message we've been giving for some years now, is that for the amount of work that needs to be done and the efficiencies that have been identified again throughout New Zealand, that water charges across the board will need to increase. I refer you to listeners to the Morrison Low report that was done for the Bay area, where they identified across those councils at least a doubling in some cases what is currently charged to achieve what needs to be done. There has been quite an underinvestment in the wastewater network throughout New Zealand. That's one of the messages coming out, and that there is going to be significant investment required moving forward, which of course is going to cost more money. So very much so, those costs are going to rise.
Thank you, Mr. Jorgensen.
Would that cost be spread out across the district or more targeted at?
Yeah, so the cost here is average cost. So in our district, we charge per supply of percent. So there are differences in cost in what's supplied from. So yeah, there's an average. There is my understanding.
Yep.
And something more, something less.
Yeah, Neil, page 25, second box up. In water pipelines assessed as poor or very poor condition at 55% against a median of 8%. The median, I guess, is the national median. Should that be the case, and the comments given the age of the district's pipe network, this result is expected. That's fair enough, but there must have been a lack of renewal program. But it would be nice to have comparisons with other districts like us, as a Central or Mackenzie, and that to make a fair assessment of that figure. So therefore, you know, over half of our pipe work is poor. I don't think that's a good reflection of what we have done. We do know the renewal programs we've had.
So I think this case I might like to add a bit more, but I guess one of the uniquenesses of our water supply network is that we've got a very large rural network, and that's quite different from urban centres that we might need to. So something like this, the comparison with us. We've also got townships like Otamatata that will install second-hand pipe. So that's already aged when it's in the ground, and that's managed using a variety of tools to try and keep the pipe as much as possible. So we do have some different characteristics than average New Zealand pipe, and that does create a bit of a challenge. We probably need to do a whole lot more sampling over our network to get a really good understanding of what that figure actually was. Thanks for noting the comment. Quite a small sample. Basically, like to add.
Yeah, I would like to add a little bit more. So most of this is associated with assessing our asbestos cement pipes, and it is only a very small percentage, and it is also targeted on pipes that had actually failed. So rather than assessing pipes that we knew were in a reasonable condition, we actually did a targeted assessment. So the 55% that's poor or very poor, we knew that those pipes had broken, and we were taking a sample beside the broken pieces. So it was done for a very different reason than what the rest of New Zealand was sampling for.
Councillor Kirby.
Yeah, Chair, Neil, question for you. If we were comparing regions to ourselves, would we be best to compare not Luther but Mackenzie, which is our adjacent district? And how do we compare with Mackenzie? And I'm trying to look at the graphs that you've got here, from age onwards, and some of them are good and some of them aren't quite so good if we compare with Mackenzie. How would you say we compared with that district, given it's not a too dissimilar distance-wide district?
I think we are quite different from a water supply perspective, though. Mackenzie's got quite small water supplies generally in the urban areas, whereas Clutha has a lot more water supplies, more like us. Probably better comparison, probably Waitaki, and probably the extent of Timaru if you took out that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not easy to compare. Yeah. We are all so different, but Clutha's probably our best comparison, really, although they've got pretty much double.
Well, while there was a lot of information here about graphs, I think there's a bit of danger in trying to make comparisons from this information.
Well, I mean, as Mr. Pacey mentioned earlier about our sampling, particular sampling we did, which then was input into that test that was done for the purpose. So, yeah, again, everyone's just slightly different, and so it does get quite difficult. Even comparing financial data, it depends on how different councils treat their overhead allocation, whether it's raised separately or whether it's included in cost. There's so many different scenarios that does make it quite difficult. However, I think DIA are going to give that a good go with the information that we've got underway at the moment, and try and really get some data that we can get across.
Just a final from me, thank you, Chair. Following on from Councillor Percival's question regarding N on page 25, just so I understand this, the median pipe quality in New Zealand is 8%. The higher it goes, the poorer it is. Is that correct? Is that how I'm reading that? How am I supposed to read the 8 and 55? Can you explain it?
Yep, through the chair, that's 8% of the pipes that they've tested are considered poor or very poor condition.
New Zealand, so
New Zealand.
our ones are at 55% considered pretty bad in comparison to the national average. That's the statement. Is that how I read that?
Yep, but that's because we've tested like 12 pipes.
Yeah.
And 7 of them are bad.
Comparison. But following on from that, then you're saying here that under the government reform tranche 1 grant, you intend to embark on the work to do that. How do you think that work that you probably had to assess will improve that percentage? Is that what you tell?
So I won't really, what we need to go and what some other councils do is actually separate testing. They're actually going to do random testing of pipes. So at the moment, we're just testing pipes that have failed. So they're going to be in poor condition, hopefully. This is another reason that's failed. But if what we could do is proactively go out and say we're going to test, I know, 1,000 samples from throughout the district. So we done that at the stage.
So 12 only, so that's a bit of a low sample.
So it's a little bit meaningless, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to question why we put it in the rule. In fact, I'm surprised it's only 55% of the testing pipes that we know aren't good. Do you have any feel for what that number would be if we were actually testing in the same way that others tested?
Through the chair. Now we're in a better position than we have been because we've been renewing a lot of pipes over the last couple of years, which wouldn't have showed up in this anyway because this is 18-19. We have appeared to have addressed a lot of the concerned pipes that were concerning me throughout the district. We still do have certain areas of the district where funding doesn't necessarily allow us to replace some of the pipes that we maybe should be replacing. I'm thinking in the Wahimo area. That's why we've got some tranche funding to do some of those renewals, which will improve that situation for sure. What percentage we're at, we're probably still above the median, but not largely above the median.
Yeah, they follow on from that. The reality is we are spending millions of dollars and we will be spending millions of dollars to fix exactly this problem. Probably having some of that information sitting alongside this would be helpful to context, but make a truer reflection of what we're facing. Yeah, that's probably the main thing. Just a quick question. We put our hand up to be one of the sample councils for the Department of Internal Affairs request for information.
Through the chair, yeah, we're not the initial 27 or whatever it was, but we've put our hand up to do exactly the same as what the rest of them are doing, correct?
Any further questions on this? I think we can someone can move the recommendation. Cannondale, second Councillor Wolstein. Any discussion at all? Not. Please say aye.
Aye.
No, and that's carried. Move through page 94. The activity report. Anything, Jorgensen, or shall we just go to page by page or section, whichever?
I think, yeah, just start with 3 waters, page 97.
Just a quick question on the cover photo. Do we pay for these male models that we're using? Front page.
So ideally,
Yeah.
For those who can't see, I'm just pointing out. Because of Percival's.
Probably just an update for participating questions. Is just heard hot off the press the delivery plan has been approved. We've been waiting for that piece of information, so that's really good. So all of the projects we put forward have been approved, and we'll arrange to sign that shortly to send back to the DIA so that they can send us the first tranche of money.
Very good.
things are underway.
Yeah, things get underway. Also, the team have been doing a lot of work in the background to get things underway. So we haven't been held up so far by not receiving this, but very pleased to have it now so we can carry on.
Mr. Chair, if we could just congratulate the team on the work that they've done so far. It was a lot of work done quite quickly to pull everything together for that application in and to show how we're going to spend $7 million each year. But I know there's going to be a lot of contractors who are pretty happy with that news, and there'll be certainly a lot of communities happy as well. So well done, Marty, and your team. Thanks very much. And yeah, what are you doing here? Get on.
Right. Well, that's that. Report on good note. Now, page 7. 3 waters. Any questions? Councillor Purdy.
Chair, just a couple of ones. Just regarding the American drinking water supply trade, I attended the residents meeting a week or so ago. There's no mention of this at all. So my question is, are there any communications with the American Residents Association as what's happening here regarding this at all? And if I put it, and if there is, maybe it's going to the wrong person, but it would be helpful just to keep the Residents Association informed. Okay, this is quite major for them, so it's quite a relatively large spend, right? So that's the first question. The second question was the Otamatata tank farm. The neighbour, and there's only one neighbour to this, has asked why and where was approval given to store these tanks and where they're going to end up being. I know there's a map attached or a drawing attached somewhere on this, but if anybody is there, it might hurt. Just talk to the neighbour, keep them in the loop. Better to keep them in the loop at the start than at the end. So somebody can speak to them, that would be great. I've had 2 questions from him through 2. So, okay, thank you.
No, thanks for that feedback. Certainly, we try and keep these visible to the community and public what's happening, but yeah, it's always can always do more in that space. So we make sure that we can touch base with
the Residents Association, that's where you first came from, so yeah, I can take it up as well and help facilitate that.
Through the chair, just wondering, Mr. Facey, whether there is an update on the Palmerston pipelines update. Upgrades, per se, for the first tranche of.
Through we're just working through detailed design now. So that is intended to go out to tender in the next few weeks. So that's that whole project is funded from the tranche funding as well. Can I just clarify the one of the questions before it was raised through the chair? The tank farm at Otamatata is at the treatment plant.
Correct.
Okay, I thought you might have thought as
there's also that are being stored at the moment, right? So this guy said.
Okay.
So just as the guide, if you're not going to end up being here, some official just need to say they're being stored to go to the plant up the road.
Yeah.
So just with colours.
Going to page 98.
Just comment on page 99. The request for information process from DIA is huge, so that is going to take considerable resource from our more council team, more than the waste teams involved, and a number of others to put this together. I think there's something like 67 or 70 different tabs full of information in a spreadsheet to go out, which essentially is a tab a day to enable that to get completed. It's going to be a real struggle. So just ask that the community to bear with the waters team and the waste team while that happens. And I think many around the country are going to struggle to meet the February deadline.
Noted. Okay, let's move to roading. Page 100. Good to see the 7th Street.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to make the same comment, Mr. Chair. But the cemetery wall is looking really good, and say well done to the team that have been working on that. It's
Very shiny.
very shiny and new. It'll be very good when it's finished.
Page 101.
Sorry, back on page 100, just the South Stone roadside trees, the outcome from the work department, Targa Regional Council. Is there a work stream that will come from that?
Through the chair, it's certainly given us an impetus to put a greater focus onto wilding pines and others. There's a number of trees that have been grown and creating problems for the public in Shag Point Road, and we're just in the process of removing those. Certainly Atahuri, we're up through there, but for our maintenance contract, we're now looking for with a more stringent program of trying to deal with it before they get too big.
There is a budget, I think it was for Birchwood Road, that would head to wilding pine control, and there is quite a bit to do. But, yeah,
Certainly a good job.
focus.
Mr.
Mr. Chair, I know I've asked this before, but for the benefit of others who can answer, there's a lot of footpath work that's been going on in the past and on the road, and a lot of times we get criticised for work's happening. People don't think it needs to happen at that stage. But equally, there's very obvious work needed done on footpaths and other parts of the districts, which is a major concern. Do we have any update on what's going to happen to those areas and what we're doing around getting on to some much needed repairs around the place, particularly around footpaths?
Through the chair, very good question. The repairs that are going on at the moment are the most significant ones. It's maintaining the rest of the asset in the north end. I think the figure we put it there was our somewhat patchwork repairs up there. It did actually manage to save just a bit more than $30,000 worth of asset that we would have lost. So it's a relatively low investment to actually maintain that. We have just completed a full survey of all the roads and all the footpaths in the district. Sorry, we've had consultants had a scooter effectively, but it's doing a video and data collection of the standard of the footpaths. From that, we're looking to create an asset plan around response to that to actually lift the level of what we're doing. So our push out of that is we're going to end up with a robust program over the next 10 to 15 years and ongoing. So we acknowledge that there is a number of the satisfaction of the residents come through was that less than acceptable. So we're doing this positive one to understand what the conditions are and we respond to the highest priority one first. And our example that we did use, looking for opportunities outside the Mike 10 Mega in D Street and Street. I say that quietly in case I've got it wrong. It's showing how we can actually work with developments to create a better outcome for the whole network. Look to do more of that, and working with Three Waters and the telecommunications team so that we can get a coordination of different activities.
Councillor Wilson, does that answer?
Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following on, Mr. Harrison, with your footpath survey, the scooter going around doing a video, etc., did it also take into account the vegetation growing over the footpath, where the footpaths are being obscured, taken over by vegetation, which the property owner should be trimming back to allow the footpath to be fully available to pedestrians? There's quite a few places I know up around where I live there where the vegetation is growing quite significantly over footpaths. Through the chair, that's an excellent question. I don't know the answer to that, whether we picked up with it. I certainly know we respond to vegetation over footpaths as a program that's quite challenging for many, but that video should record that. So yes, we will be, as an action point to pick up on it. Thank you. Just a really quick question in response to that. When you say you respond, Mr. Harrison, is it to respond to complaints from the public or just respond to what? Through the chair, both on that. Some people that do put in a CRM around that they can't use the footpath because of what it is, but most of our work is that we've noted that there is an issue here that we may have actually seen somebody having difficulties or there's been something that's occurred that's made us look at a particular street. Okay,
I
thank you.
don't think we've got a proactive program at the moment to assess vegetation
Right.
control across footpaths, so it is very much on a complaints-driven system, or if someone notices it.
Yep. The other, through the chair, the other side of it is when we're looking at other works like the footpath renewals, that's a part where we do look at those as well. So when we're doing works that are in the area, we do look at it. Thank you.
Councillor Groby.
Yeah, just perhaps, Chair, on a slightly lighter note, on page 101, I just wondered if that photograph of that gentleman bending over there was also Councillor Purcell. Anyway, but on a more serious note, and pleasing to say this on page 102.
We'll just go page by page.
Oh, pardon me, I thought you'd.
So we're still on page 100. Councillor Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering, back to footpaths, wondering if the survey identified areas where footpaths could be required, as well.
No, the survey at this stage, through the chair, the survey at this stage is for the condition of area current footpaths.
Mr. Chair, just on, if I could just add to that, often it's the communities that know best where the paths are needed, because they see the use all the time, and certainly in community board areas, you know, it's quite useful to take that information and provide it to the community board. And yeah, I think that's the way forward to make things happen in that respect.
Now we can move to page 101. I won't answer your question. Any other questions on page 101? Councillor.
Sorry, it's not actually one part of this report, but could you give an update on works that's happening on Eden Humber Street? Change or?
The Eden Humber Street, through the chair, that's at the moment we've completed the moving of services underground on that. There's a final design being done on the roundabout there for the geometry on it and the crosswalks on it. So it is moving forward to be completed.
102. Now, correct.
I'm more serious. The first point under Waka Katahi, the liaison meetings that you're having, it's actually pleasing to see that. What's the purpose of the meetings? And although you say that it's to discuss delegation, can you explain that a little bit more? What is it? What are you actually trying to achieve at those meetings?
Through the chair, this is what Tari as far as the role as the state highway manager. So it's where they're coming to talk with us as an affected party, or as a consultation's not one of the strong points. So they do rely on local councils. In this case, they're treating us as an adjoining property owner. They're coming to talk around what they're doing, what their program is, and gives us an opportunity to say what's happening in our community that we see as an issue that we want to have some dealing with, or some action on.
Thank you.
Page 102. 3.
Intersection upgrades, and I've come and had a yarn with you about this, Mike, but certainly I've heard a lot of feedback from heavy transport operators around some of the intersection upgrades and the concern they've got around that, and I recognise you're working on that. A couple of things. First would be, can we go back to like what I thought worked really well down by the garden sort of intersection there was when we did a temporary setup of things before we went to the permanent measures to make sure it worked and that people were comfortable and the trucks that were coming in and out. And we actually made a few movements and changes before we went in and did the permanent measures. And I know that we've had to change a few of our more permanent measures, which I think is potentially costly. Before we do the intersection upgrades, are we able to do a bit of a testing of them to make sure they're working?
Through the chair, it's an excellent point. We'll move to that. That's an outcome that we've identified through how the general public and anybody in fact knows it works about to happen or is going to happen. So we're looking to do that as part of the design phase on it, with a couple of constraints with that. The Reed, Derwent, Oos Street intersection with the roundabout that will go in there, putting some temporary measures in there wouldn't address the crossfalls coming through, so it wouldn't give a full picture of what's happening here. We don't want to make it an unsafe position for the larger vehicles. But with that one particular intersection, might I say that we're talking with the transport operators, and we're getting a number of the vehicles to come through. As part of the design phase, we've been using road markings to actually check that. So
I've certainly had, like I said, a lot of feedback from heavy transport, and a few of them have mentioned the idea of having a transport advisory group that we can work through, so that rather than them all kind of coming one at a time, having a bit of a group that you guys can talk to directly and potentially iron out these sort of issues without it being probably, I guess, every second transport agency getting in touch with you.
through the chair, that would work very well.
Fantastic.
Can I add that I've had some truck drivers come to me also with real concerns about trying to negotiate these, having to go onto the wrong side of the road in order to get through the gaps they're trying to get through. And so therefore, while we're making it safer for pedestrians, we're making it safer for cars, we're actually setting up something for trucks, which puts them right at risk and probably liable if they're on the wrong side of the road and something happens. So I think it's quite a major thing. The one at the sale yards is a particular example of that. And if you've got a car and a trailer, you've almost got to go to the wrong side of the road. So I make my point.
Through the chair, I do have to respond to that at the stage, because our turning circles and design that does not show that any vehicle needs to go onto the wrong side of the road to turn. If there is that issue, we do need to know about it. We're not aware of it. So there was some concerns in the early stages while it's been developed, but with all the road markings in place now, I don't believe, on the information I have, that would happen, but it concerns me if there's even the possibility. So if it is happening, please let me know.
That's the first one.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on what Bill said and agree totally with him. This morning coming into town, it's the first time I've come in since that's been completed at the Sale Yards corner. And I watched a twin steer truck go the other side of the road, go around there, heading down Sale Yards Road. But also, you've now made one lane, so anyone turning left and you're heading east along Western Road to go to the main road, you've got to stop and let vehicles turn left. You've only got a single lane. It always used to be a passing lane there. Outside the case of traffic shop. I don't understand. Anyway, that's something we can talk about later, but I totally agree with Bill and Melanie. Even though in discussion with you, you had given us forewarning of these, but I've totally forgotten that you had. All of a sudden it seemed they arrived and they were there, but you had actually warned us 3 months ago that this was going to happen. So I must apologise for not picking up on that 3 months.
I think maybe to round this out, I think that setting up that group would be quite useful. So perhaps could flick names through to Mike so we can have that discussion. Because obviously there's quite a few different views around this particular section. We can change things. Obviously it's not ideal for after it's been built. But I mean, things can be changed to make right if it's not working. So I think we should set up this group and have a chat about that section.
Thanks, and I think it's really good to hear from those who are having the issues rather than hearing from us through. Okay, anything further on page 103? 4. Recreation.
Just quick question on that. Obviously the aquatic centre is doing relatively well in the circumstances, but still struggling. I guess our long-term plan will be reflecting that moving forward as to what they may be working in, or environment they might be working in.
Through the chair, at this stage we haven't made any changes for the LTP. We're still, I guess, exploring, what the environment's going to be. Certainly it has been it's difficult operating in the last few months. However, the signs for term 1 next year are looking good. So Matthew's actually quite positive at the moment. So we haven't made any changes from that.
Okay, thank you.
Page 105. I've got a question, Eric. No doubt you keep an eye on contractor, but I noticed the grass is starting to go to seed. It's not growing that much this year. Some of it's well and truly needs cutting.
So through you, Mr. Chair. So if there's any locations you are concerned about, please do let us know. We do an auditing program every month of parks and reserves. Generally, they are adequate at the moment. There are probably 1 or 2 locations where we do need to focus on. So if you are identifying locations, please do let us know.
It's a message for everyone.
And likewise, obviously, we do have the CRM system and stats and so on. So if there are members of the community that are aware of it or not, please do let us know.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Freedom Camping, Eric, well done on getting your application for funding from MB for the Freedom Camping Ambassadors. So they resulted last year in a great reduction in the number of problems, complaints about freedom camping. Do you expect that to improve further?
For you, Mr. Chair, I wasn't here last summer, so I'm not aware of what complaints may or may not have taken place, so I can't comment on it likely more or less. I guess we are watching the space as far as domestic tourism this year. We're not sure exactly what form it might take. Certainly there is evidence that New Zealanders are buying a lot of caravans and motorhomes at the moment. What's not clear to us at this stage is whether they're likely to be freedom campers or whether they're likely to go to campgrounds or paid facilities. It's a new environment for us to go into.
Indeed. But thanks for making the point about New Zealanders too. The majority of the campers will be New Zealanders rather than foreign tourists. So it'll be interesting to observe Kiwi campers' behaviour.
Indeed.
Any question?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I thought I would just expand on the navigation lights. The package of the engineering still doesn't cover things off. The requests that came up at the Shoreline Committee meeting was for navigation lights at the entrance to Boat Harbour, so that people late could find their way on the entrance for a start and get make their way in. But yeah, what ECAN done in the meantime is got reflectors at a number of sites, also including on the Waitaki side. So there's reflectors and new poles and so forth at Harbour and Sales County. So a number of other spots around the lakes, which has been very good. One of the things was that came out of that discussion was the need for search and rescue and other safety measures, safety services to be able to find those entrances and if they get called out to an emergency and it gets dark, it's very, very good. Otherwise, it's a good step forward for the services, the promotion community and others.
Yeah, the Boat Harbour can be, unless you know it, territory can be quite hard. Any further? Moving on to page 106. Councillor Holland.
I was just wondering, with we've got the advisory group for the rec centre coming up, being what it's obvious unavoidable, didn't need that much time, 2 days, that we got a full uptake of participants.
We haven't got a full uptake. Some invited people can't attend all sessions. We're encouraging them to attend what they can or send other representatives if they can. I guess it's important to know that it's not the end of a process, it's the start of a process. And to some extent, what we're doing is going back and reconfirming where we got to with the feasibility study. So going back over the ground, just confirming that this is where we got to. This is still, I guess, the preferred solution for us to go forward and do further work. There will be an opportunity for anybody to also give some further feedback once we finish those sessions. So we invite people to do that evening session at some stage after we've given them the results of the work. Time to reflect and come back to us with anything they think that we need to work on further. But as I indicated, it is the start of the process. This will then go on to feed into council's long-term plan consultation, and also the further business case we need to develop to actually go through the complete process.
I would say further add to that as well. I mean, there will be a number of people in the ILM. I mean, it's great if people can make it, but understand that it's really hard for people. It's just it's pretty much a step long, a lot of steps to go. But there will be officers and there'll be members in the room who will be covering everyone's perspectives as well. So perspectives won't come across. So yeah, it is hard for people. We acknowledge this, but it isn't a must attend meeting, or else decisions will be made that can't be undone. This is very much an information gathering, setting the background, saying.
And the previous feasibility study involved quite a lot of discussion with the sports codes and users at that time. So
It's a long way to go.
Yeah, just thank you, Chair. Eric, Ulster Ocean, by the bottom of page 106, top of page 107, lovely photo there of the Ulster Ocean Bridge site. Well, looks quite interesting. Great. This is from Sailors Cutting through to Benmore Dam, so it's great to see it underway. Looking to open mid-December. Any further updates you can give from when this report was written?
But essentially, what's in the report stands. We're still confident the construction is on track, and obviously, of course, still 6-7 weeks to go before we plan to open it. Yeah, so no further updates. We're looking good at this stage.
Thank you. Looks like it'll be an exciting ride.
And an opening date already sorted. So that's
We have penciled in a date. I'm just not public out there just yet, just to ensure that will remain on track in 3 weeks' time.
Councillor Newton.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just wondering, the draft lease being prepared for the Boys Brigade main, what sort of terms is that looking at? Potentially a building conversion.
I would have to go and check exactly what we're drafting. I can't tell us from what.
Okay, anything further on 7? 8? Warwick Park.
Private subdivision.
Further question? Councillor Tamdale.
Just under the Department of Conservation Southland Management Strategy, obviously looking at this, we fit into that, being Southland. I'm just wondering what role this strategy might have and whether it's likely to come with anything like funding or support in some way.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Conservation Management Strategy is in Targo Dock geographical zone. So the zone for Targo is obviously the same as what this may or may not call Targo. What Dock is effectively doing is a partial review of it, solely focused on the possibility of having more cycleways on Dockland. So that is the parameters of the review they're doing. In the first round of involvement, we made some submissions about the possibility of having routes in the future through Ganses and through to Middlemarch from Barlison. Effectively, Dock has considered what we submitted, rather than drafting a new CMS and doing the second round of consultation. So the process of reviewing what they've come up with, and we'll make further submissions based on what they've proposed.
So they're probably more talking permission.
It's very unlikely it's going to come.
So it's not Dock promoting cycleways as such. It's kind of around saying, well, this is what might happen over the next 30 years.
Yeah, the CMS, as it was written quite a while ago, and it didn't, I guess, predict the popularity and number of cycleways that are now on the street. And the way the CMS was written, basically, if it didn't include a cycleway, it couldn't happen.
So it's just allowing for
We're
it.
trying to now open that door to allow the cycleways and change some of the rules to be a bit more flexible with the future proposals that may come up.
Thank you.
Anything further on this page under a note? We'll move now to property. My pictures down at the breakwater.
It's looking good.
Questions, anyone? Page 110. Councillor Person.
Yeah, Renee, just refresh my memory. The regional council they give us any funding for this remedial work? Because they get quite precious about the harbour at times.
Through you, Mr Chair, no, we've received no.
So have we ever had negotiations with them on possibility of that?
We have,
And what have they said?
no.
It's a council asset.
Yes, but it's still the regional council's harbour.
Water is not that.
And if we don't have the breakwater, then the harbour's gone, they haven't got a job, have they? And secondly, if I can just excuse me going to the next page, you've got, on the airport, 2 new sites being formed within Rotary Precinct. Does that mean you've put 2 more helipads down or something? What does that mean?
Through you, Mr Chair. This is, we had a request for a new hangar site for one helicopter company. So they've got theirs in, and there's also interest for a future site for an existing company that's out there.
So that's outside of where McMillan is, it's out for those other people you mentioned before.
To the left.
So essentially, we've got new leases signed up, so we get more come in than what we had.
Thank you.
Further questions? Very much complete.
Happy that the Essex Committee received no information.
Thank you. Move to Councillor Newton. Discussion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
No, and that's carried. Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, I'm sorry, committee, but I forgot to convey Tim Hopkins' apologies earlier for not being here. So
I don't think it matters because he's not actually on.
no, but he did want me to
Right.
say that. So
Thank you. So with that, that pretty well wraps up our meeting. It's nearly 10 o'clock. So with that, we say thank you to those who have been watching, and I hope you found it interesting, and declare the meeting closed. We'll be meeting here at 10:15. There's going to be quite a kick back to that. So someone's been
Yeah, same, Michael, just in my car yesterday, right down the petrol station, shit, they go away.
Okay.
Welcome to staff of each day and welcome to council. Meeting. Now, we've got some public schools and we can do the public schools minutes. Move on to 3.1, confirmation of previous minutes.
Yeah, I also move, Madam Chair, with very minor amendments or corrections of a grammatical nature communicated to the.
All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Now, does anyone want to speak to the public excluded minutes? Right, we'll open the public then, and do I have a vote? Councillor Newton, Councillor Harlady. Those all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against, carried. I'll move on to page 14, decision report. Right.
Good morning, everybody. Said we'll make a start with the decision report and the first decision in relation to the spatial plan with the district council. This piece of work was considered in a workshop in September last year. The officers have since taken preliminary discussions with consultants and identified that if approval is given today, the piece of work could commence by Christmas. I'd just like to remind you, the spatial plan is a strategic plan with a 30-year vision and developed in conjunction with the district plan and released as a supporting document. The officers here who drafted and prepared the paper, and if you have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Just to add that we've had quite a few discussions through the district plan review committee, Oamaru being, I guess, the main centre, urban centre in the district. There's some growth challenges that we need to navigate around that. And a spatial plan is one way that we can look at it at a high level, which is more engaging for the community. I'd also mention that through the new national planning urban development policy, that a future development strategy is strongly encouraged. And also, given the recent resource management reforms, everything's kind of moving in this general direction. So it will assist in sort of front-footing some of that to come up with an agreed vision. So yeah, no, thank you.
Right, we'll start with the questions.
I'll frame it as a question, although I also would like to make a comment on it later based on the answers I get. But I'm just curious to know why officers have seen fit to include consideration of Western and Kakanui. I can see some logic for including Western, because part of it is at least physically connected with Oamaru. But I'm wondering if you would accept that arguably, or particularly in the case of Kakanui, it's sufficiently distinct to warrant its own plan, and it might muddy the waters in terms of focus. What's your response to that?
So one of the so there's quite a few discussions that we've had in and around Oamaru, and I guess we have had to consider the relationship. And part of, I guess, this discussion is very much considering the relationship of Kakanui and Western to Oamaru. That's not to say that we have to go down that track. Did you want to?
The consideration of Kakanui won't be throughout the entire spatial plan will be more focused just on its role in absorbing future growth, future housing growth for Oamaru, and whether.
Yeah, okay.
I guess just to expand on that too, it doesn't include us doing a plan for Kakanui in the future. I think it's just looking at how the township grows in that direction. But Kakanui certainly needs a standalone discussion.
Well, that's my point. That was, I think, my thinking. But the other thing also is that its capacity as a growth absorbent is significantly circumscribed, I would have thought, by the new National Policy Statement on Valuable Soils, which essentially enclose the hamlet or the village at the moment. So, I mean, yeah, that's fine. If Katrina and Hamish are essentially intending to reference it as a possible, shall we say, additional, expansion, though, that would not preclude what you say, separate spatial plan, because I believe it needs that. Just given the success of the master plans up the valley, and I think Kakanui is deserving of its own recognition for a master plan, which would go beyond the likes of the scope of this, I presume.
Thank you, Chair. A quick question. The commentary about the population growth in the district over the next 30 years is quite significant in terms of how you view this document going over that. In the briefing to incoming councillors a year ago, there's virtually no population growth in the district over 30 years at all. It's very minor. And the population is getting older in that period of time as well. So I'm just wondering where this spatial plan will reveal strategic issues around population growth and the meaning of future growth strategies. It's quite a complicated question, but I'm saying the population, from what we've been told, isn't growing. Yes, we want it to grow, but the forecasts are saying that it's not growing. So where's the significance of this based on that?
Can I just start by saying that this isn't, that is a very important question. This study will be able to wrap up a whole lot of issues, including some more specific kind of boundary issues, not just where and if Oamaru expands. I'd say that the population, the evidence hasn't changed significantly from 1 year ago.
No, it would be remaining at that sort of level, yeah.
But
well, there is growth, but it's, yes, it's fairly small.
We do have to be forward planning, but in particular, we want to avoid a fragmented and ad hoc approach to where whatever development we deem fit comes into the plan. And so I think that's the advantage of it. And also as a means of engagement to bring the community alongside us in this process.
Chair, just commenting, I agree with bringing the community along, totally agree with that, but just trying to understand if we're talking about where and how, for example, Oamaru will grow in 30 years, you're being told it's not going to grow significantly at all. So I'm trying to understand the significance of the spatial plan, which it feeds into the district plan, which isn't going to show growth at all. Really, we looked at it over the next 30 years, based on the information we've been given.
I'll just pass on the picture. Please, Brian, take a
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Growth is, basically expected to be sort of 100 or 200 people per year across the district, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that does represent another 50 houses or so every year that need to get built, need to be put somewhere. And we're hearing now about the shortage of land. We've got a lot of subdivision going on over the last 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and we are hearing developers talking about shortage of land development, where they can develop. So there are issues around that, but also don't underestimate the change in that growth, the overall growth. We have a lot more holiday homes than we used to, and they don't have anyone as far as residents go. There's no residents attached to those holiday homes, but they actually represent a very large non-resident population that we also have to look after and make sure we service all the necessities that they have. So there is also that as well. Then you look at the change. It used to be, a generation or so ago that families were bigger. Now there's less density in every household. That number has dropped. So even though the population may not change at all from 1 year going to 10 years later, the actual number of houses they utilize is greater. So there's all of these things, which mean we are building more houses, we continue to build more houses, and actually I'd like to be optimistic enough to think in 5 or 10 years that growth will accelerate for a lot of reasons, at least looking at how many people would come back to be part of God's own. And will help us prepare for change. If it doesn't happen, we haven't lost too much of all. But if it does happen,
Councillor Halloway.
I just wanted to add on to Henry's comments. I think it's important to note that in terms of the demographics of our community, median age of Pacific families is 23 years old compared to European, which is 40. So there's a huge disparity in terms of those differences, and it's important to future plan and future proof. So I am quite supportive of improving this. We do need to consider those different types of demographics within different groups. So anecdotally, sitting between 15 and 20% of the population, there's something to take into consideration.
It just suddenly occurs to me, listening to Councillor McGrovey and also to the Mayor. We've had a conversation about this in a workshop. This will be the first time that the wider public, members of the media, and anyone watching will have heard of the spatial plan. I mean, I guess the nub of the matter, because it's going to cost money, what will a spatial plan give us that a district plan won't? I mean, why are we bothering to do this?
The reason we're trying to do this is to engage with the community to ensure that we have a robust process that delivers on a number of things, including those that are strongly encouraged, such as the future development strategy idea, and to ensure that we do things in a manner which avoids fragmentation and ad hoc approach. I think that we can, within this single discussion, create a vision around the vitality of the town centre and how we can achieve that through the district plan, the implications of removals of parking standards, which has been required by central government, how we look at highly productive land in and around Oamaru and what that means, how we do design guidelines around medium density development, and also large format retail and where that might have a role in and around Oamaru in the future, along with that relationship of Kakanui Western to Oamaru. So I think you do eventually get to that in the district plan, but it's a much more technical and formal process. And I guess we really want to have as much feedback early on as we possibly can, so we know really which direction to go down.
So this is, in a sense, high concept.
High concept.
Yeah, and it introduces the community to a series of new ideas.
Yes.
And they can respond in a more informal way than the law allows them to do. Okay.
Precisely.
Just a question. I see affordability or something along those lines isn't sort of mentioned per se within this context. Just want, I guess, reassurance that that will be something that is put across what we're doing, spatial plans. Because I think that it's certainly coming through in the other work councils doing, to make sure we're all.
Well, I think it's inherent within the whole looking at land supply and the growth questions that the Mayor has alluded to. And affordability is something that is involved right through the district plan review.
It wouldn't hurt for us to make sure we are that kind of things. I think it is important.
Okay.
Right, well, we've got any other questions, Councillor? Heavy on pulling to move.
plan. And we, two members of this committee as representatives on the social.
Are you looking for them to be named today, or
Is it something that could be left to a later time?
no? Okay, seconded by Councillor Halliday. Right, any comments on
This is a really important process and not one we've got to get wrong. We need to make sure that the community is included well along the way. Just seeing at the moment, pushback in the Kenzie district, a couple of their spatial plans that are put out where there seems to be a disconnect between what's going on. May be expecting, so we do get it right. We need to make sure that we lead the discussion well and we engage that we end up with a plan. So I think we'll get a good line.
Hasn't been moved from that one. Bring that to do that. The committee members just saying we can probably do that by email. Okay. Just want to echo what Meg Birch is saying. This is really important. It's important to get it right. We need to really explain what that means to our community, because I do take your point, Councillor Groby, that we're not necessarily growing a huge amount, but when you start looking around at subdivisions, things that are happening, there's certainly growth happening out into our suburban areas, out into our farming, and we just need to make sure we manage that well, and we are doing it meaningfully so that we're not surprising our community when things start popping up, and we're actually just making sure we're very clear about how we're going to do that, and I think that's really important. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, just very quickly, just having heard that, I think to some extent it seems to me the conversation this morning suggests that this will have something of the quality of those master plans in an area done. And it does seem to me that the great benefit of those was that they focused quite clearly and positively on those two places. And I know what you said this morning about considering Western and Kakadu, but I would just urge you to, this in a sense, I would like to see it as a kind of an Oamaru master plan with consideration of those other two areas in relation to Oamaru, but acknowledging that they will need their own spatial or master plans as well.
I think definitely, but at the moment we've got a huge amount of buildings between Oamaru and Kakadu.
Well, indeed, I agree.
Just on that, I would say that connections between Oamaru and Western are growing daily. Yes. They are becoming the roads long way getting built on, and so there is less of a definitive line about being understaffed and finishes. So I think it does make sense to add that, sure that is well covered. Basically get that process done. So.
I'll put that. All in favour,
Aye.
and against, that's carried. Right, and then move through to.
Once again, to have the team here again to answer a question about the district plan. Note that this will be Anna's last presentation of the district plan update, and I'd like to acknowledge the excellent leadership given the project to date, and wish her well in the future endeavours that she's going on to. And over
Thank you. So there's not a lot to report. We are taking 16 chapters to the workshop on Monday. And we are still waiting on spatial layers from third parties in some areas. So that's sort of an ongoing delay that's come through from the last report that I put forward. We're also in the process of just finalising some of our specialist assessments around the coastal environment and the natural landscape and features areas, and also the airport zone. So we're making good progress. Our budget is looking fairly good, and the completion of chapters is progressing from 6 weeks ago, as you can see from the chart at the back. So if anyone has any questions.
Wondering what the proposed budget is effectively relating back to the spatial plan, as it indicated that.
If I can, I believe it's going out to people, so it's probably not released publicly right now.
Are we entitled to ask whether it's going to be a separate budget or will be within the global budget for the district plan? Madam Chair, I'm perfectly happy to move the recommendation. I'd like to move the second one as well, if you'll allow me. I'd like to move that the Community Health and Regulatory Committee thank Senior Planner Anna McKenzie for her significant contribution to the district plan review today. Very disappointed she's leaving. But thank you very much.
And really put the stamp on the district plan. So you give us in a pretty good space. Thank you. So I'll put that motion. All in favour, say aye. Aye. Carried. And this is the second one, the recommendation. Second one will be the recommendation six.
Receiving and noting. Oh yes, indeed. That was I did move that. Yes, I mean, as Anna's right, we've done 18 chapters to date. There's 14 in progress. Things are looking good in terms of getting it done. So yeah, no, that's fine. I'm happy for that recommendation to stand. Yes, unless you wanted to add something to it.
Okay. Right, so we'll put that one as well. So all of those say aye.
Aye.
Yes, that's carried. Thank you very much. Right, and move on to page 26, the British Environment and Regulatory.
Once again, we're very pleased to the officers here to present the group activity report. When you look through it, I believe you'll see that there's been an enormous amount of work achieved by the team, and it represents a very successful picture when you look at the performance of the key outputs.
Page of time council. Any questions on page 26?
Just a quick question, Chair. Thank you. The building inspection numbers from July to September have gone down. Is this a reflection on the changes to building requirements that come in from the yes, is this a reflection of that, or is this just something that's happening in the district?
I don't believe that started to show. Exemptions came in on the 31st of August, I believe, and I don't believe that's September.
Because it's seen the code applies, the issue's gone up, so it's back beyond this stage.
When the long-term building consent numbers of consent issued.
Anything else on page 26? Page 27. 8.
Chair, potentially a correction. The real ice cream in Omarama got a funny building.
Just doing the merger.
Yeah, we are about to take.
Well, I think they're taking the ice cream from Matasa to Omarama.
Yeah. The people that own it live in over the town. I'm sure it's set up. Should be. At least it's a different organisation.
Through the chair, sorry, that might have been my mistake. I just asked my room opposite and I was told that it was there. I don't want to upset anyone in the competition.
No, thank you very much. Chair.
Sure.
Is the growing operation smaller mushrooms?
Through the chair, I think it's a little bit of both.
Yes, Madam Chair. If I could ask Mrs. Elgar, first of all, can you give us a bit of information about what neighbourhood support is? Is it a reinvention of neighbourhood watch, or does it involve other things as well? And what is this intention to have a forum in the first quarter of next year? What form might that take and who might be involved? Please.
So through the chair, yes, neighbourhood support is what was Neighbourhood Watch. It's just done a bit differently.
How differently is it done?
So rather than having the twitching curtain type, person in the street who's keeping an eye on everything, it's a more collaborative way of working, and it is, I guess, more involving of whole communities, a little bit like the emergency management response, community response team type approach. It can be different for every community, so communities have the opportunity to look at how it will work best for their communities and to work it that way. So the idea of the forum is because neighbourhood support approached us to see if we had an interest in having neighbourhood support in Oamaru. I can't answer that because I haven't spoken with the community, so we've gathered as much information as we can, and a couple of meetings with neighbourhood support, and the next step would be for Neighbourhood Support New Zealand to come down and have a community forum and talk to the community. So whoever would like to come would be included in that, and we'll advertise that publicly when they're ready to come down. I think at this stage they were looking at February because they are coming to Dunedin. So we're just working through that process at the moment. Because this is a community decision, neighbourhood support in Waitaki would need to be an independent trust organisation, so the community needs to agree or not that it's something that they want.
Just a supplementary question, if possible. Neighbourhood Watch, one of the key features of it was that members of the community patrol and if you like, contributed to a sense of safety by being out and about places where the police move or supplementing or augmenting police numbers. Would this new collaborative approach involve that or not?
I wouldn't think so. I would think it would be more about actually neighbours looking after neighbours, and in the case of an emergency, a flood or a fire or something like that, them having a plan for their street or their neighbourhood or their community. I can't imagine, I haven't heard of any models of actually using patrols, but that doesn't mean to say that's not what it might look like in Waitaki and Oamaru. It's up to the community what they determine they want, is my understanding of it.
The watch isn't happening now, is it?
No, we don't have neighbourhood watch currently. We do have it in Wainakarua, where I'm living. They set up a small neighbourhood watch group there. Neighbourhood support, group. So, and there are things that come with it. There's resources, there's signage. There are a whole lot of benefits for the community in terms of that prevention type activity.
Any other questions? Page 31.
Yes, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions to Hamish. Can you explain what the third one down, Permitted boundary act to construct boat shed, that's one. And what is a DPBA for garage within setback in the RES zone?
To answer that question through the chair, it's a deemed permitted boundary adjustment for the garage. So it's a relatively simple consenting process involving neighbours sign off.
Okay.
In terms of the boat shed, I don't believe that's right on the waterfront. It may be something that's just within the township zone itself. And it may have just been called by the applicant a boat shed. I don't have any further information on it.
But it involves something on a boundary, does it?
It does.
DPB.
Oh, it's deemed permitted boundary adjustment.
So that one I know from Matata, the neighbours said that's fine, you can move the line. We have that.
Anything else on that?
Chair, just the very bottom one. Hamish, can you amplify that last one? Proposed planting pinus radiata on rural seabed and retrospective Indigenous vegetation clearance and bird. How significant was the clearance, and what are there things we need to know about that? It seems to me that there might be some significance to that one.
We can certainly send the details around to councillors. So this is an example whereby somebody's come in and said, we'd like to plant forestry, and we've asked some questions and we've discovered that there's been quite a lot of prior clearance. I think it's Kanuka. I would have to delve into the details to find out exactly how much. But it's not uncommon for retrospective consents to come in. And this is one of those examples whereby that was needed.
Have we required any reinstatement of Indigenous vegetation?
Again, I would have to go back and look at the details, and we can certainly send that around. I can't comment on that right here and now.
Nothing else on page 32. Page 33. Page 34. Favour, please say aye. Against? That's carried.
Thanks, Alan.
We're just moving.
Future and how we do that, we go to the same
Okay, welcome. And we'll move straight into your activity report.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So in this, what I will take it as read, but there's a few things that I'll highlight first. Okay. There's a bit more of an update in the project information at the beginning on the existing installation at the Waitaki Museum and Archives, which is getting terribly exciting as we are moving closer and closer to the long-awaited reopening. And as we go through the report, Ms. Searle will be here the questions on that, including informing us about some promotional tools that we're going to offer to you and to a few others this week, all going well. In the library, as a previous request, we've got a bit more detail in there about use of the electronic platforms in the library by our customers. and Mr. Van Zyl is here to speak to any questions on that as we move through the report. When you get to the customer liaison area, you'll see we're bringing in a bit more of the CRM reporting, and that's going to evolve over time. Mrs. Hicks is doing some great work on that at present and has been doing quite a significant amount of the data in there to ensure that we're looking at current and updated information. Opera House, I'd like to draw your attention to the pilot that we're involved in with Alzheimer's Otago to be certified as dementia friendly. This is a really good opportunity for us to be even inclusive and to support a great cause further locally. The Forester Gallery's program has been quite full and great to have people through the building again. It's involved some very quick installations by the team. We've had 4 new exhibits during October. So I'm really grateful to the group for working as hard as they have been through those processes. So over to you.
Fantastic. Right, we'll start with any questions on the Forester Gallery. Move on. Page 38 and the Museum and Archive. 38, yeah.
I think it's a question there.
All right. So had a bit of a wander around what they're working on in the museum the other week, and it's looking pretty amazing. I think the team in there have done a really fantastic job, and just want to recognise that. And if we do find an opportunity for councillors to get around, I recommend you'll come and have a good look around, because it's quite different to what we have known as our museum in the past.
If I can jump in there as well, possibly a good opportunity for myself to talk about what we're hoping to do this Friday. We would love to have had the place opened with the Heritage Week, and I did push the team really, really hard, but short of it not being quite as finished and actually still having construction equipment around, we couldn't quite do that. But I wonder if Ms. Searle might like to talk about the promotional opportunity.
Yes, so we're, thank you. We're looking at inviting the elected members through probably 11:30 on Friday, if you can make it. Otherwise, we can look at some subsequent times, but I'm really keen to be able to, because obviously we've got the photographs there, but there's nothing quite like seeing it and getting your feedback on any of the final things that we're working on, like the window graphics for the exterior of the building and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to showing you through, and keep an eye on your emails for that invite after this meeting.
As well as that tour for yourselves, we're going to be doing another one for some invited media, because it's a good opportunity to give a bit of a sneak preview and to build up to that opening date, to get that influx of people as we open the doors.
Fantastic. All right, so any questions on that, councillors?
On the museum, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've got one couple, but first of them is on page 48. Are we allowed to jump forward to that, or do you want to tell you about that? Okay. Page 48, at the top, staff spent a day with Leslie Fowler from Dreamscape Design, special designer working in stage 1. She's produced draft concept designs for the 2 exhibition spaces upstairs. I suppose my question is this. What has happened to the old museum committee that used to involve the appointed councillor or councillors and members of the public who had some input into museum operations and practice? And in the sense that we are the, shall we say, the guardians of the public interest, and like the agents of the community going in, I'm just wondering why we're not seeing some of these plans. I mean, it all seems to be that the staff are keeping them quite close to their chest and not sharing some of us, which I find disappointing.
Well, through the chair, I would say that, the intention certainly not keeping them close to our chest at all, and I'm sure we can work with Lisa perhaps to arrange in a workshop to share those plans. They're at a very early stage, and it's really just in terms of because of that lotteries funding and that deadline to get work ready by the end of 2021. Getting Leslie up to speed, so then we can be applying for funding for any additional work that's required to complete that on that time frame. So that's perhaps we haven't shared them with you in as timely a manner as you'd like, but the intention hasn't been about keeping them quiet. And as for the museum committee, I'm afraid I couldn't speak to the exact date of it, but it has been a number of years until that's been active. I'm not sure exactly when that went into some sort of abeyance, but yeah.
Would you have a view that it might be fruitful given the museum, shall we say, resurrecting or reopening, re-engaging with the committee? Might this be a good time to revive that committee?
Certainly through the chair, that's something I'd be open to discussing, yes.
Mrs. Bailey.
Can I ask?
Mrs. Bailey.
I was just going to add, of course, with this being the original Cultural Facilities Development Project, there was a portfolio committee involved in that, which we disbanded and had all of that information coming through to this committee, which, you know, I fully support. And as we start getting more into the final or the depths of design for the museum stage 2, which is still, as Chloe has said, there is very much in that conceptual and planning stages right now, we're certainly very open to bring it to this committee to talk.
Yeah, my belief is there are friends of the forest. This committee that I'm talking about did exist. Peter was on it, Peter Gartner, as I can. But so many members of the community, and they had input with the director. And I'm just saying, I wouldn't mind, I'd like perhaps you and Chloe to give consideration to dividing it, bringing us a report back to the committee on that.
I guess the Friends of the Forest and the Friends of the Library is much the same, is a community-driven kind of group. And so it is different to being a council-driven group. And if you need to sort of, I guess, work out what it is you want. And I don't think we can expect that our staff will drive a community-driven group right now. I'd say just getting enough volunteers on board for what they do day to day is probably enough of a stretch at times. So yeah, obviously, Councillor Wallstein.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just Chloe, top of page 38 again, regarding that Fowler main state design, has produced the draft concept designs for the 2 exhibition spaces upstairs. In my memory, they were never exhibition areas. But can you actually explain a bit more on what the upstairs area is going to be used for?
Yes, so through the chair, working with the property team, obviously we've been fortunate to retain that lotteries funding and putting a lift upstairs. So there's currently 3 rooms upstairs, they're all used for different types of storage. As I say, one is used for collection storage and the other 2 are used for sort of more miscellaneous storage. The space will be reconfigured slightly, but there will be 3 spaces, and one will be it's proposed to be a continuation of the exhibitions downstairs, but picking up the thread of the 20th century history, because at the moment we stop at about 1900 with the spaces that will be opening this year. And the another space will be a temporary exhibition space, so for changing exhibitions produced by staff, and that's a function that we previously did have, but now that space is being used for the archive service, and the other space will be proposed to be an education space.
Well, very good. It sounds very good. So well done.
If I could just add to that as well, while we're working through that process next year, that also gives us an opportunity for a touring exhibition space that could also be used by the gallery if for any reason the gallery is not available at that time as well. So it gives us a bit of flexibility, versatility there, which would be great.
If I just commented a bit, just that it's great to see the building used in total rather than only the ground floor being. So
of course.
I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Right, councillors, any other questions on the museum?
Well, sorry, I had one on the archive related to it. Just on page 60, you've given us the number of archive inquiries. I'm wondering again, I'd like to ask if you can give, I know the examination's only for most of the services that's provided, but to me there's a potential to generate income there because the private good of many inquiries is manifestly overwhelming. I wouldn't mind some indication even on the donation level, some indication of what it's generating or offsetting its costs.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm happy to provide that for the next report.
Right, councillors, we'll move to page 48. It's probably as easy as anything, and just wander through the rest. Any questions on page 38? Yeah, sorry. Right, we'll go to page 50. '51. 52. Just really good to see some of the stats coming through here with the online as well. It is really nice to see that we're still building on. There's a bit of a step change in. Right. 53. Page 54. Page 55.
Yes, Madam Chair, sorry, page 55. Am I being tongue-in-cheek when I ask whether the renaming of the customer excellence strategy to the customer experience strategy involves a downgrading of the standards expected?
No, it just makes it relevant to today's world.
How does the removal of the word excellence and exchanging it with the word experience make it more relevant?
I guess we're just looking at year 20. This was written in 2013, so it's just 7 years old, and it's time to give it a new look.
Okay.
That the team decided that the experience is what we want our people to leave with.
Okay.
I don't think the previous one allowed for descriptions such as whiz-bang to be used.
That was it.
Well, I agree with the absence of whiz-bang in any of our staff policies.
Right, page 57. Just wondering with the, probably for yourself, the Alzheimer's friendly training, whether that's something that we might look at for the rest of council.
If I can look to Mrs. McElhoney, who's been involved in this program, possibly hasn't talked training. I'm looking at the moment.
It is it's a pilot, so we're the first in North Otago that they've asked because we've worked with the Alzheimer's group before. So that our front of house staff, so cafe and ticketing, because they're the ones who have them. I mean, I've had someone with Alzheimer's coming off the street, really confused, so it's recognising it. So I'm sure once they roll this out, I can let them know that council is interested in.
We're certainly always, oh, sorry.
I was just wondering, if governance advisor has had that training?
Is it dealing with?
No, I wasn't asking that.
No.
Would there be a particular reason why the governance advisor may have needed that training?
I'm sure you.
Moving on, whenever we get the opportunity for any training that we think will be well utilised for staff and for elected members, we certainly put our hands up for it. So you can rest assured that we'll keep our eyes open for that.
Fantastic. Right, page 58.
Yes, Madam Chair, just looking at the under-sector update, last paragraph refers to the fact that you're working with the Dunedin Arts Festival and that 3 shows presented at their Arts Festival will also be included in that. So are the 2 festivals happening sort of sequentially?
No. So they've deferred their festival until April next year.
When's ours?
It's in October usually. It will be October next year.
So there are 3 local shows, or 3 shows that are touring?
Yes.
Okay. So we've basically those 3 acts are have now got two guaranteed.
There's 2, yes, that are going to be advertised.
Right.
Right, anything else on 58?
Let's go back to 7, just regarding the fundraising concert held in Opera House. Just a general inquiry, Francis. Does the Opera House give reduced charges for events like that fundraising concert? What's the charging regime for commercial events, if you like?
So that's this is an arts on tour, which is a subsidised show that comes throughout. Okay. So it gets funding through Creative New Zealand to put on shows. So as a venue, we can purchase it at a nominal fee, and that's always covered through tickets that come in. Right. So and covers our costs. So it's an opportunity to build audiences and target audiences to come in. As a result, we're getting full houses in the Ink Box theatre. It's been well utilised. If that was a promoter, who was bringing that through, so it was an opportunity that presented itself.
Okay.
Fantastic. Right, 58, 59, 60. Right, does anyone want to move that report is received? Councillor McRoby, Councillor Newton. All in favour, please say aye. Against, that's carried. Now we don't need to move into public excluded because we've done those minutes. We can close the meeting. So thank you very much, and we'll be doing a bit of a change around to have the performance audit and risk.
So you can have and I can have a look at what
There's a reference to us having a little.
So it's all like right here.
So live, yes.
It wasn't here. But did I notice? No. Just be Welcome.
Are you starting in 8 minutes?
No, we're starting very soon.
Do we have an opportunity to use? And we're allowed to have a quick.
We are still live and on air at the moment.
All right. Yes. Picture. Question that you can concede or agree consent. Yes, sir. Just to see you.
Yep, we'll share it.
That's what you
So, Mr. Chair, we are live already.
Now to come and join us. All right, so welcome to everybody in attendance, both elected members and staff, and to anybody who is watching on the live stream, welcome as well. So the Park Committee meeting, the Performance Audit and Risk Committee meeting held today, and so we'll start with the apologies. And any apologies for absence?
Councillor Percival.
Councillor Percival is not here at the present time, so would someone like to move a apology for Councillor Hanlalali? Councillor Holding, thank you. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Declare that carried. Declarations of interest. I'm sure everybody's interested in what's going on, but no personal interest. So, right. Confirmation of the previous minutes on the meeting held on 27th of October 2020, starting on page 7 of the council papers. Move Councillor Hopkins, second Councillor Holding. Do those minutes be confirmed? All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Declare that carried. There's no comments, right? So on to the memorandum reports on page 14. And this meeting is focused on the Information Services Group activity. So I welcome Mr. Chow. Welcome all to the meeting. And also just point out that Councillor Holding is the Associate Chair for Information Services. So welcome him to make any input into the meeting as well. So, right, Bill, I'll hand it over to you to make any more comments you may wish to make.
All right. Okay, so
Thanks, everyone. Just would like to highlight in the report that we have continued to make progress on a lot of corporate projects. Especially, we made good progress on the digitization of property files, but we still suffer from the unfilled vacancies. We've got quite a few staff left us earlier this year that the vacancies still not filled. So we are not progressing as fast as in some areas as we expected. Even though we have not a full team, we still managed to accomplish and deliver some of the work in the some of the unexpected areas, such as the OHA fire response. And we have some other projects or important things coming. That is the OHA, that is the Three Waters information response to the DIA, which will take probably 2.3 of our FTE until Christmas, which will have even larger impact on the project delivery and the BAU tasks. We are trying to get backfill, but it is going to be difficult to hire temporary staff for such a short time. Yeah, that's mainly it, and open to questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Zhao. So perhaps we just go through page by page. So page 14 is the first page of the report. Councillor Hopkins?
Just picking up on that point you just made, Bill, about finding it difficult to hire temporary backfill staff. I mean, I just keep on, there's a whole lot of companies out there that must be looking for work. Surely this could be a standalone contracted external requirement. You know, this is what we want you to do within this time frame. How much will it cost? Can't we just engage a software firm?
Yeah, well, especially after COVID, I think every organization started to realize how important IT or information technology is, and they are all out there trying to grab the people they can. So, you know, the pool may get a little bit bigger due to the returning Kiwis, but the competition is a lot fiercer, and the private sector organizations are offering much higher salary than we do. So it is very difficult.
But you can't bundle it as a contract to an external entity or a private company. So you couldn't bundle this as a...
Yeah, we can do that, but the cost will be humongous.
Mm.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a comment, Bill? Just you're talking about your on the second bottom paragraph, page 14, 2.3 FTE, full-time employees required to support the Department of Internal Affairs Three Waters reform program.
Yep.
How long is that those staff be seconded, if you like, to that project for? Is that a?
Will be until Christmas.
Right. So that's a major additional workflow that wasn't expected, wasn't in your normal work program.
Unexpected. So we'll try our best to cope. But as I mentioned, there will be implications. So, for example, we're trying to accomplish the elected members' SharePoint side before Christmas, but this is going to largely impact that, and we will not be able to accomplish that before Christmas.
Mm. All right, so page 14, page 15, on to financial performance.
Yes,
yep,
Chair.
Councillor Hopkins.
A couple of things. Can you give us a bit more information about this event and facility booking system, Bill? Who will benefit from it? How's that going to work? I have another question down the bottom, but can you tell us a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, I'll refer that to Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. The facility system used by the pool to manage their bookings and to organise swim lessons and so on, it fell out of support, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago. And so technically it's unsupported. So if it was to break, it'd be in some hot water. So we brought about this project. Yeah. So I brought about this project to replace that system. Okay. But it's a little bit more than that. It doesn't just let the pool organise their bookings internally. It actually opens it up to the web and puts it online. So people from the community can see what facilities are available and their bookings itself.
Right,
So-
and the same applies to the Opera House?
Yeah, Opera House as well. It's technically any facility council chooses can be added to it.
Right.
Yeah, so we could even, it's not in scope just yet, but there's certain parks and rec functions we could do, and library functions and all sorts of things. At the moment, we're really just looking at Opera House and pool primarily.
Okay, but sorry, this may be a question for Fergus at the bottom. The LTP AP project is continuing to progress despite two significant issues. First being the business analyst hired specifically has since resigned, so a very short tenure. And then the vendor is apparently no longer making the support available. So why is the latter the case? And are there things we should know about the circumstances relating to the business analyst's resignation? I mean, that appointment was made pretty recently, and for the person to then turn around and quit so soon afterwards, is there an issue of some sort that we need to know about?
Well, perhaps I can answer that.
Yes.
You know, obviously, these are sensitive matters, but in general, what I would say is that echoing what Charles said earlier, the desirability of highly capable people in information systems arena has been really markedly, more recognised throughout the country and the world. So in some circumstances, our personnel are being offered very substantial salary increments, and we simply cannot match those.
Yeah. And what about the vendor pulling the plug? I mean, wouldn't there be a contractual obligation for them to deliver a level of service?
There is, but only within the parameters of the contract. So when people are contracted, they're not contracted for life, and the contract is coming to an end. So we will actually end up with a better platform.
I think it's fair to say too, Mr. Power, that the second question, the systems and system analyst, that person is not available due to personal circumstances that were not foreseen. So it's not a matter of any dissatisfaction with council. It's just a matter of.
Oh, okay, so you know something about that.
Yes, I do, which is personal information for the, not to be made public. Yeah.
Right. Sorry.
That's right. No problems at all. So, and if I just go back and ask you, Bill, just on the Wi-Fi again, the Wi-Fi in the Omra Harbour anticipated to be completed mid-December, Palmerston and Marama shortly after. So the pressure on your staff hasn't slowed that process down at all. And
well, yeah, the staff that will be required to work on the Three Waters project is they are not the same people working on the Wi-Fi implementation. So the Wi-Fi project is less impacted by the Three Waters reform.
And Palmerston and Marama before Christmas. Any prediction?
Joe?
Yeah.
Yep. The longest lead time is with some of the equipment that is scheduled to arrive around the 7th of December. But we have done all the groundwork in the 3 sites. Fiber is ready at the bike shop, and fiber is also ready in Marama. And we are working on putting the connectivity infrastructure in Palmerston. And we have already received the equipment, almost 75% of it. It's just a few that's left. So we do hope before Christmas, if the delivery time is not changed, we should be able to deliver at least the infrastructure for the 3 sites.
Thank you, Joe. Yep, that'll be much appreciated, I'm sure.
So it would be a very good Christmas gift for the local people. But yeah, we have some limitations that are out of our control, like say the time Spark and Chorus deliver fiber and other stuff. So that's out of our control.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Mayor Kircher?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just questions on that DIA request and the consequences of that. First of all, question, Mr. Chair, just on the, what elements of work will be delayed, and second question, maybe more for Mr. Power, but just in evaluating whether to go for the detailed request for information or the more basic request for information. What were the considerations around priorities and the consequent delay in other work being done? So 2 questions here.
Okay, I'll answer the first one. the areas that will be impacted will be one, we talked about the Hive systems and tools development. That's, for example, the councillors' SharePoint site. And the second will be the area of data warehouse and business intelligence. That includes the dashboards, the site that we're going to show you later. That's the project management dashboard site. And also some of the other areas that related to data warehousing. And the third is the BAU area, because one of the staff that works on the assets management BAU stuff is going to be fully dedicated on this. So there will be a delay and probably loss of service level in those areas.
Yep.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, I can answer that. Essentially, Canterbury Chief Executive discussed this issue and agreed that we would take on the more arduous element. Partly that is because of the inevitability of the need for this data to be furnished in any event. So if the initial tranche of 27 authorities really provide their data, it would be natural for elected members to know where we stand in relation to that data provision and then purging it in any event. So that would be well armed in terms of information going forward.
Right. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Power. So, Melanie.
Just expanding a little bit on the event and facility booking system. Really think this is a great project. Things like parks and reserve bookings, the real time aspect of that, yeah, certainly has. That's especially seen, I've seen where sitting on that someone's booked and someone else hasn't booked. I guess just making sure that we've got that all linked through to the information that our team needs to fully book a park or reserve, and whether or not they can get into make sure that that is done, if you will. Yeah, keep it flowing, but yeah, just with the Wi-Fi, just hopefully the thing around that, so people let you know when it's going to get active.
Yep, indeed. Hopefully there is, yes.
Yeah,
so make people aware.
Yeah, we'll work with the comms team.
Yes, yep, to put on, yeah. All right, so we just, sorry. Oh, Ross, sorry. Yep.
So the publicity is so good that the Otago Residents Association are now saying, why can't we get it? Because they've got the smart TVs and all the rest of it. We tried through a dongle concept. So a dongle concept that goes on. Yeah, dongle.
Yeah, it's a proper term, Councillor Hopkins.
So,
yeah.
Because the library doesn't have it there either.
Right.
I was trying to get it through the library process, access to the upstairs meeting room and also.
Right.
So I just asked the question. I hope that are at some point, as is the other parts of our district, not connected. Have it sooner, perhaps rather than later.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McRovey. And just, Bill, perhaps the plan was to do those 3 locations first.
Yeah.
But is there a plan to expand to other areas in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, certainly when we finish deploying the 3 sites, we will, gather some data and the insights, and then certainly put another proposal in front of you, and we can decide which other sites we want to do as a priority.
Right.
In phase 2 and then in phase 3.
Yeah.
It'd have to be dongle and down.
Yeah.
It'd have to be dongle capable.
Indeed. Indeed. So, Councillor McRovey, your job is to keep on the case.
Well, it's just passing the message on.
Yeah.
They obviously know the publicity has been very good.
Yes. Right. Great. Great. Okay, so that was page 15. Going on to page 16. So the Hive project you've already talked about, Bill. So, all right, and the public website. No questions there. On to page 17. There's a fancy chart here with a lot of circles and different triangles and things. So do you want to, you or one of your team want to expand on that, please, Bill?
I would just expand a little bit on that because we will have like a live demo on this in a short while. This is something that we do not need to compose every time when we deliver this report, because this is part of the project management dashboard that we created, and that will offer the single point of view of all council projects and resources and statuses. Of course, green here means, things are going well, while amber means there's a little bit of issue there. And at the end, we have a percentage of completion. So it's, I believe it's quite straightforward. And any questions? Otherwise, we will go into this a little bit in a detail a little bit later.
So just to make members aware, there are 3 presentations coming up which are not in the initial agenda. So they will expand further on these points. But just to comment, Bill, on what you said, I'm very pleased there is green, amber and red. There is no red on your report. So that's good. Red being a project which is at risk of failure. So I'm pleased to see there's no red there. All right, so we just leave that and we'll wait for the later presentations to expand on those on page 17 and 18. So on to page 19, information systems, property file digitisation. No questions, comments? Page 20,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
property file requests.
Look, I just want to acknowledge the property file digitisation team for pivoting so quickly. But when I read this, I thought, hell's bells, that's so obvious, but it could so easily have been overlooked. You guys just swung around and did that. So it just, it's a response that could easily, I just think in the hectic kind of aftermath of that fire. So yeah, hats off to the staff.
Yeah, of course you're referring to Councillor Hopkins, the digitalisation of all the OHAL property files.
Yes, correct.
Yes, yeah.
The support of the wildfire response.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
And Suzanne will expand on that a little bit later with her presentation.
But I mean, my reaction when I read that was, I never thought of that. And yeah,
yeah.
Reflection on my stupidity, but no comment.
I said it's a solid nod at the head.
Right, indeed, yeah.
I just wanted to salute the staff.
No, it was a very proactive matter to assist future rebuilding of houses in the OHAL village. Okay, page 20, page 21. Authority upgrade, which was covered earlier on, but there's nothing else to add, Bill. It's gone well and it's improved the performance of the main.
And opens new opportunities because 7.1 offers more online services capabilities. So that will be something that will be tapped into.
Legoima request, Local Government Official Information Meeting Act requests. So these keep coming in and are being answered within the average time of 14 days, well under the 20 days. That's well done to the team. So nothing else on page 21. Key IT activities supporting elected members. Then 22, key IT activities supporting council staff.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Look, if I could ask Bill a couple of questions about you've helped with providing infrastructure, IT infrastructure and services to the water department of Bear Street. When you go on the next paragraph to talk about cyber security being an important aspect, and there's other references to different things. Now got password-free systems and so on. I'm just wondering whether having our IT over different locations, abolishing passwords, how confident are you that these are things that strengthen cybersecurity rather than put them at risk?
It's a very good question, Councillor Hopkins. Having our offices in the different locations doesn't necessarily reduce the cybersecurity capabilities. What matters is the underlying stuff, the infrastructure, how we design our systems, how they connect with each other, how they connect with the outside world, and most importantly, I mentioned it quite a few times, the capability or the awareness of our staff. So you can have a very good technical countermeasures, but it just takes someone to click on a phishing email to compromise the whole organization. So yeah, that's having the different locations doesn't affect the cybersecurity.
What about things like, I think that I can't find the reference here, but I read it at the time, you say, oh, we've got rid of passwords and there's a whole lot of other things you said that you've done. And I was thinking when I read that, does that enable more people to access things they shouldn't access? Does that make it easier for somebody outside to get in?
No, actually, quite contrarily, it makes it harder for bad people to compromise our systems because a lot of times, I want to go into the details, but the phishing emails, people get the hackers get the username and password by using the phishing email. But with the passwordless authentication, we do not need to use username and password to authenticate. That means if an email gets in and people even click the link, and it asks for username and password, people can stop and think, hey, the organization has stopped using username and password. Why is it this email asked me to put username and password in? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I think just to make the comment too for members that we have to be careful what comments we make regarding cybersecurity in our public meetings, just so we don't give anybody out there any ideas.
This is a public report. That's what
Indeed. I'm just making the point though that yeah. So
I'm sure if I overstepped the mark, Bill would have said zip.
Yeah, indeed. So going on to page 23, key IT projects, information technology projects, Bill. So we've listed out a number of projects there and when they were completed. So that's
any questions regarding that?
23, and then going on to page 24, the current projects in work in progress, and including the event management, which has been discussed already, and the IT, the public Wi-Fi infrastructure. So, and there is a cybersecurity awareness program for council staff to be arranged in the near future, I'm sure. All right, no other questions, comments? Okay. That brings us to the end of the group activity report. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Holding, Councillor Harley. All in favour, please say aye. Against, declare that carried. So now presentations, Bill. You've got 3 presentations. Do you want to?
Mr. Chair, I move that we go into
No, there's only the last presentations.
No, the presentations are in public, so we'll just, So these are 3 presentations which I mentioned before have been added to the agenda since it went out. So, and these are in public. So the first presentation is digital strategy to be led by Bill. Second presentation is project management site demonstration by Richard. And thirdly, OHAL fire support by Suzanne. So we'll just make our way through those 3 presentations. So you can lead off, Bill, with digital strategy.
Okay, thank you very much. As mentioned in the activity report, we are working on Council's first digital strategy. The strategy itself is still a work in progress at the moment. And once done, we will have a proper workshop with you to go through it. Now, I would like to share with some of information with you on the what's, whys, and how's related to the strategy development. But before I start, I would like to share with you or review with us a story everyone should be familiar with. That's Alice in Wonderland.
Oh.
So after Alice fell into the rabbit hole and had a magic experience of getting big and smaller, she got lost. Consequently, she had no idea where she wanted to go and thus did not know which way to go. So when Alice came across this smiling cat that popped up in a tree, there's this classic conversation, and a classic indeed. But what's the inside within this conversation? So the conversation between Alice and the cat points out an obvious proposition. You must decide where you want to go, that is, your end goals, before you decide which way you should go, that is, your means. If you don't have any specific goal in mind, then you cannot assess whether a means is appropriate or not. And this is why we are building the Council's first digital strategy. And we would like to decide where we want to go in terms of digital transformation. and why we want to go there, and come up with means to get there.
Right, Bill, okay.
So we're talking about digital strategy a few times, and what is digital strategy? Quite contrary to the name, digital strategy is not simply about technology. It's not simply about zeros and ones. It responds to the intersect of business and technology, and it is a business-led, high-level plan for taking advantage of digital, and it is an agent of business change. It implicates new services, better and more efficient services, and new ways or better ways to access our services. So there are a few services we enjoy at the moment in our daily life that are not in some way digital. And citizens' expectations are set by their interactions with private sector organizations. As a result, the public sector is under pressure to meet the increasing digital expectation, but is lagging the private sector in adoption, and the gap increases all the time. Let's look at COVID. COVID was in large part managed successfully by our organization and because of digital means. And our staff could work from home, but citizens still need to attend physical locations for many of our services. And this placed them at risk, an unnecessary risk. So certainly we need to do something about it, about the gap, and our response must be coordinated. It is not enough to simply invest in technology, because an ad hoc and coordinated investment will only guarantee poor customer experience and inefficient use of budget. For example, a citizen who is required by WDC to maintain multiple logins to multiple systems, or having to deal with multiple systems in order to complete a task, will think this will probably implicate, like I said, broader council inefficiency, and both of the symptoms will be as a result of uncoordinated system implementation. Yeah, you look at the central government, some of the central government services and some of the online services in other organizations, with an uncoordinated approach, will end up in different systems requiring different user authentications. So they are, going back, so there are digital capabilities, the core ones, that we need to implement once and do properly. But they are not cheap, and they will need an enterprise investment approach rather than be left to the particular business group to manage. Any questions so far? So what is the benefit? We're talking about creating this digital strategy. In one sentence, we want to put money back into the pocket of our citizens. You may ask how? We define it in three ways. So one is reducing the cost of the citizen, reducing the citizens' cost of engaging our services by allowing citizens to engage digitally from the get-go, hence less traveling and time spent waiting in queues. And secondly, we want to increase council's efficiency by removing hundreds of unnecessary accumulated manual steps. I'll show you an example later in the public excluded session. And here, we should not just be thinking about digitize the existing processes. So for example, changing a paper-based form to a PDF form. This is not going digital because there are still a lot of manual steps involved, and we will not get the benefit out of the digitization. And the third is, of course, the more effective and a better asset management. We will do that by increasing the asset life, and thanks to better and real-time data and proactive maintenance. And this is a diagram that we calculated. It's a benefit over 10 years, accumulated benefits of council benefits and as a citizen benefits versus the cost. The gray line is the cost, and the blue line is the accumulated savings, in the upper end, because we calculate the potential benefit with the upper end and the low end. The blue one is the upper end and the orange one is the lower end. We deliberately removed the y-axis because at the moment we're just trying to confirm all the numbers. At the same time, we also just want to show this diagram to give you an idea that with a proposed investment, we will be break even in 5 years. And if we look at 10 years, we're looking at the benefits like 1.5 times at least, or 2 times of the total investment.
Isn't that graph fundamentally misleading? Should the grey line be effectively pull the blue line down so it's on a more shallow gradient? Because the cost will sit with the beneficiaries, i.e. the ratepayers.
Now the grey line shows the total investment and the what's that?
They pay for that.
Yeah, but if you look at the, say for example, look at the 10 years blue line minus the grey line, that gap is the benefit.
Okay. The other way of looking at it is showing the blue line is more shallow up the curve.
Yeah,
because you're
that's
incorporating the cost into the benefit.
Yeah, and this is just to show in the individual lines, which is the accumulated benefits and the cost.
Sorry.
So yes, there's a large benefit over the longer period, Bill. A cost in the short period, but a benefit longer term.
Yeah.
And that cost, Bill, in the first 5 years, does that grey line include both council cost and also the public cost you just mentioned?
It will be a combination of both because the investment will be required from different channels. So there will be different funding methods.
Right.
Some will have implications to the to our citizens.
Yeah. And as council provided, is that the cost to be incurred by council? Is that already included in our annual plan?
At the moment, it is not because we're still finalizing the strategy and finalizing the projects included in the project. So it's not done yet.
It'll come in due course.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Right. Carry on, please.
We describe what good looks like, and then our approach is quite unique because the digital strategy is written or the good through the eyes of a citizen, because that will give us a better end goal, like so where we should go. That is the answer to Alice's question. That is not to say that we do not care about the internal staff. Rather, we worked collaboratively with our staff members. We did a lot of interviews and workshops as we developed the digital strategy. And we also structured the digital strategy as a high-level business case, and it lays in broader terms what good looks like and emphasizes the tangible benefits and of making the vision real. That's the benefit driven. And last, we are very practical because we wanted a clear plan of investment to deliver the benefits. So that's our approach.
Yep, highly structured approach.
Yep. And we specifically made sure the digital strategy is aligned with our community outcomes. This is a new one that developed by you. I will not go into the details, and you can, if you are interested, you can read them later as the PPT is uploaded to the LG Hub. And of course, there are things that we need to do differently. We talked about a coordinated investment earlier, because without the coordinated investment, we will end up with a mosaic of uncoordinated parts and a fractured customer experience. And there is some plumbing that need to be done once and properly. That is the core capabilities we talked about earlier. This will need to be a proactive investment. And the third one is perfect will be the enemy of good here. What is perfect for a specific business group or department may not work for the big picture. And we sometimes may have to trade short-term foothill benefits for the snow-capped benefits of the long-term vision.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. Yes, but picking up the point you made, Bill, regarding the software, it definitely has to be all coordinated, so it all works together rather than in isolation. So, and we've lost Alice.
Oh, see, it's so good.
Can we go to the previous page, please? So going back to the Alice in Wonderland story, Alice said there's no going back for her, and for us it's the same because we can go back to yesterday as the world was quite different then, and the world is changing at an exponential speed, and we will have to cope with it by think differently and do things differently, and that is something the digital strategy will hopefully deliver. Yeah, questions?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Bill. That's so questions on digital strategy. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, but first of all, I object to using Walt Disney's Alice rather than the original 10-year illustrations, but putting that aside. It seems to me the key to this thing about saving money and reducing costs will be a system built into the system that tells people what it's going to cost them to interface with us online quickly, efficiently, easily, and securely. So how are we going to do that? How is a person who accesses a current queued service or turn-up service or paper service, how are we going to persuasively and quickly bill them less expensively for accessing us online? Will individuals have accounts? Will they have to pay with a click on a button before they get the information? How's that going to work?
Yeah, another good question, Jim. As I mentioned earlier, some of the core capabilities that we need to develop very urgently will not be so cheap, because you mentioned how to do it cheaply. Some of the core capabilities like integration, like the keep the single sign-on and those kind of things, those will not be very cheap. But after we accomplish those things, we will be able to deliver, hopefully, again, this is our vision, a single customer portal that the customer will be able to log in and access all our services.
So Jim will have, I'll be able to come in and I'll have my number or my code or whatever. And if I'm accessing the service, built into the system will be my bank account or something, and there'll be an automatic transfer of money from my account to the council's as the interaction occurs. Is that how?
There are a lot of possibilities.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Right, any further questions for Bill before we move on to the presentation number 2? No? Okay. Well, thank you for that, Bill. Thank you for that update to councillors. And yeah, we look forward to that strategy progressing in the future. Yeah, in the near future. So strategy number 2 is from Richard on the project management site demonstration. So the floor is yours, Richard.
Thank you. I'll just share screen. Thank you. So, brief introduction. Bill has asked that I present to you today a topic we've touched on previously. And the screens you'll see here is the internal tool that we'll be using to manage projects within council. It's a very good mix, a potent mix of governance and operational tools. And it works seamlessly together because as a project is identified and is believed to be sufficiently material that we want to wrap the governance framework around it. So what I mean by that is, would we have a project to paint a bathroom? Probably not, it's quite simple. But would we want a project to build a building? Absolutely, a rec centre or something. So a material body of work would be considered a project, and then the project would be brought in under this framework and managed within this. And the power of it is transparency, and transparency improves performance. So what you're seeing here is more or less the internal governance tool that we will have at our disposal. At this point in time, we're just trialing a few projects, and the data you're seeing here is a little scale. I haven't refreshed it lately. but it'll still demonstrate what we're doing. So the first screen you're seeing here is what we call project overview. So it tells you a count of projects by their phase and by their status and who is managing that project. That's really good straight out of the box because it tells you how many things you've got in flight, so in delivery, how many things are pre-project, they're just an idea, we're getting our head around it, and how many things are perhaps delivered. It also tells you who's carrying how many projects. That doesn't give you a lot of insight into how material a project is, how complex it is, etc. It just simply tells you a count of who's doing what. And it helps us with our resource management. So we can see here that, you know, Daniel's running 3, Mark's got 3, whereas me, I'm in here somewhere. I've got 3 as well. So our material might be high in cost, but simple to do, or it might be remarkably complicated, but low in cost. So this doesn't tell you that yet, okay? The far right is the risk and issues measure. So this is a number that I've more or less invented that helps us understand per project. These are not organisational risks, though it could very well be linked to that. And it could tie in nicely with the work that Neil and the assets guys are doing. What this does is per project, every project manager, as part of the methodology, must record risk. They must do a risk update at least once a month. And because every project manager is managing their risks, in the tool that we give them, they all flow neatly into this framework and we can look at them all at once. An issue is a risk that has been realised. So for example, in the LTP project, we pretty much always have a risk about staff resourcing. Well, that risk has materialised and is now an issue affecting that project. Fortunately, we don't have too many big issues or big risks. So overall, we're green. So we're pretty good from a risks perspective. Down the bottom of the screen, you're seeing just a list of which department the project's in and, you know, who's managing it and what its title is and its status, and also if it's been connected to the finance system so we can track its specific budget. Now that's the project overview screen, so it's a nice entry point.
Rich, I'm looking at the overview on the right-hand side. Status comes first, and seeing how you describe status, I would have thought that should be the one on the left. And phase actually, what it involves is progress or current state. So I'm just wondering whether you think that projects by status should be on the left up the top and then phase in the middle.
We could do that.
It's just a question.
Yeah, it's good thought.
Because you've got status on the left at the bottom.
Yep. Technically, we can slice and dice this for anything we want. I'm afraid I'm not much of an artist, so I've just pulled it together. But we could take, if this was something we were going to bubble up to your level, we'd have very different information. It'd be much more governance focused, but we could slice it and dice it any way you saw fit.
I'm not being serious, it's just a question.
So I'll just move on now to the timeline. Now the timeline is important because this lets you step back again. So you're at maybe 1,000 feet. Well, now you're at 10,000 feet looking down. And the bars represent, this is very important. Each project manager has a start date, a series of tasks they're tracking day to day, and a forecast end date. So this is live. This is what they really think their project is going to look like. So you can see where it starts, where it's believed to finish, and the difference in colours is the outstanding tasks. So don't get too excited. This is all very stale data, but the idea is that you can stand back and you can look at things from a distance. You could filter this by group, department, or anything like that. The next one I'll bring your attention to is the project risks. So as I said, every project manager that manages a project must track risks. They must update this once a month at least. So the idea is they will sit down with their project team and their business partners and sponsors and so on and work through the risks one by one. Is this still a risk? Are there new risks, etc.? and they have to track down, put down what the cause of it is, how they might mitigate it. It's just, while it might not be the world's best risk management framework, it is a risk management framework, and it's much, much better than what we were working with previously. The same thing is required of issues. So every project manager in their tool goes in and tracks their issues every month, and they update them. They also need to track their tasks. So this here is showing us all tasks, but if I just pick something, so I'll do this one. Oh, okay, that's a bad example because they're all done. Let's go to this one. So what you can see here is I've picked the website project, and you can see overall what task is assigned. And just, again, it's stale data, but the point is you can go into a project and you can see all the tasks and how far you've progressed through them. Another key item is project status reporting. So this is similar to what you would have seen in the PAR report just now. So every project manager must write this one-line summary of their project once a month. And this goes into the PAR report and can be distributed to any other stakeholders. The key to this is that it gives the project manager a voice. They can write down what's gone well, what's not gone so well, and then they can use these really simple flags. It's just a tick box in their tool to go red, green, orange, according to agreed tolerances. And then it happily flows through, and we can, again, that 10,000 foot view, you can look down upon it. I won't go into too much more gory detail. However, you can then start to track budgets, and you can look at on a per project basis. But again, the art and science of this is you don't want to track in a tool like this. You defeat its effectiveness if you're tracking immaterial items. So painting a bathroom is probably not something you want to track. You don't want a budget for it. But putting together an entire new complex or putting in an IT system is something you do want to track. There's reasonable and substantial risks. There's reasonable quantities of money, resources being used, and it's just good diligence and very prudent to have a good framework wrapped around all of this. So where we're at in this implementation at the moment is the IT guys, so us, we use it. We are endeavouring to put all of our projects in it, run all our risks, put all our status reporting in it, and live by the sword as it goes. And the assets team have kindly volunteered a few projects to give it a bit of trial. And there's a few other little projects from other departments within council also having a bit of a go at it. So it's still early days, but for your benefit, this is the sort of stuff we're trying to work on to make sure we're really nailing our delivery.
Thank you, Richard. And the obvious benefit of this is that all projects which are being undertaken in the wider council are all in one place and can be observed.
Yeah.
So just a question: who actually checks this all the time to make who's you do? It's going to come back to you. So any flags, anything that isn't performed as required, you're the one who's follows that up.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, Councillor Hopkins.
Just a quick question. Is this our IP, your IP?
The software is not our IP, but how I've hung them together is our IP.
So there's an obvious implication of that, isn't there?
I'll just sell it. No.
We don't have to pay anyone for it.
No, we don't have to pay anyone.
No. We could answer.
All right. Any other questions? Anybody on that? Yeah, Bill.
That's it. So, Richard, if you can please go back to the risk management part. And this is well developed to manage the project risks. And we have had a discussion to further develop this into a council-wide risk management system that will not only track project risks, but also will provide a single point of view of council operational risks and other risks. So this will be a tool that will develop in the near future, that will provide you one place to look at the check all the council risks. and it will be, we'll get all the information from different departments, information sucked in from, like say, Excel files, and it will automatically present in a dashboard.
All right. And I'm sure Councillor McRoby will be very, as the Associate Chair of Risk, will be very keen to see that. And
the only comment I'd make, Chair, is that it's an American document. The dates are in the wrong way.
Yes, possible.
Well spotted. That's what happens when you have a dongle.
Indeed. All right. Any further questions regarding? Councillor Newton.
I just had one question. Does the system provide for future planning at all in terms of, say, long-term planning, potentials, and budgets, etc.?
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Newton. The intention is to, in the LTP AP project that we mentioned earlier, is to load the budgets that you guys are discussing into that, agreed to whatever parameters appropriate. Once agreed, we'll output all of those projects, make a placeholder in here that we can then manage through annual plan processes. So in principle, every project can be established in this framework, given a start and end date, so it appears in this sort of roadmap view, if you will. And then you could also plausibly put in the budgets as well. And they'd all have a status, obviously, of not started until they started. And then we track them as they are.
Right, thank you. Right, yeah, my last question, Councillor Rody, we need,
Richard, you mentioned before about assessment of risk and who inserts the risk factor. That's obviously overviewed by someone else. Just very quickly, how does that process, how are you intending that process to work?
So, quantifying risk, there's a framework that we use to quantify a risk. However, the actual, that's actually manifesting and actually happening, that project so the project team has some guidance, have the right stakeholders to input, but at the project team, they're saying whether or not they feel for the project, if that risk is material or not material. So is it a high or low, medium or whatever. So that's where that's happening, and they agree to that level of risk, and then it bubbles up. And the principle, the theory would be, then people would see that risk and then drill back down and ask what's happening about it. So if someone was to put in a catastrophic risk, it would show up red, and then we would engage with them, because that's the key here, the engagement, the conversation, and it would go back down, and perhaps it's not actually a catastrophic risk, but the success story is you've had the conversation.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Richard. So thank you very much, Richard. We look forward to that pilot being developed as time passes. So, right, now, last presentation, last but not least, Suzanne is going to talk to us on the OHAL fire support. Suzanne, the floor is yours, Suzanne.
Share the screen. Sorry.
I've got one in the PE. I have got one in the PE and another one, a very short one.
So I just wanted to share with you the areas that touched in the information systems team when responding to the OHAL wildfires. So as you alluded to earlier, one of our first considerations was the property files when we heard about the events of the weekend. So when we returned to the office on Monday, we realised pretty quickly that we were going to be called on to deliver a whole lot of property files to support the building inspectors carrying out inspections of sites where there've been partial damage or insurance claims, and that there'll be a lot of demand for those. So I'm very proud of the team who's switched really quickly to making sure they could digitise all OHAL property files, and to our information management team who pitched in and helped them prepare the files and get them digitised as well. So they got through an enormous amount of files, 193 since the OHAL wildfire for OHAL, and they had just normal business as usual for 380 property file requests as well to coming in amongst that. So they did a tremendous job in the past month.
Well done to the team, Suzanne. Yeah.
And it just reiterates that the huge benefits in digitising the property files, because to respond to a request for a property file that's digitised, it's a 2-minute job, whereas to try and get the files to someone, it can be 10 minutes to deliver them a hard copy at the front counter, or if they're an insurance company from a distance, getting involved a couple of hours trying to get the information to them. So the ongoing benefits in having those files digitised is enormous for the council. The other thing we did is realise that FENS may need some support. So straight away, we publish our aerial imagery for other companies, geosystems to consume if they wish to. And so straight away we contacted the fire emergency services and let them know of those services, and if they needed to use our historic aerial images to make any comparisons or help with their work. And in return, they supplied us aerial imagery of the Ohau fire area that they captured. So the team was involved in getting that imagery loaded and available to our staff internally quickly, so that they could also see what's happened up there. So it looks, it's fantastic quality imagery to help our staff work on the site. The other thing that we did to a team, so an Ohau fire infrastructure response team was put together to coordinate the activity of the recovery there internally. So a SharePoint site was put together and a team put together to manage the communication of all the members of the team. So we could all find out the information that we need where we need it. The site's able to host the necessary things to conduct business, like budget codes, show you recent activity on the site, so you're up with information that's being added, images, and display quickly important information, and contact details for the team. So the beauty of this has been built in the Hive, so it's another new addition to the Hive, and the beauty of it, we can get internet coverage up in Ohau, is that our members can log into this from up there and see this site and get the information they need on site if they can get the internet coverage. We use this platform to also build it's a list, but what it's capturing is the status and an assessment of it's capturing an assessment of each site. So we've used this platform to allow anybody who's up there, so a water engineer or any other person covering different aspects, health and safety, to log in and update values in here to say how safe the site is, if it's been cleared, and what the state of connections are, services. And the benefit of having this in SharePoint is it tracks a full version history, so we can see when all the changes were made. So from a civil defence auditing perspective, we know what values were changed and when they were changed. So from this list, we've been able to drive the mapping and to be able to give people a current picture of what this looks like on the ground. So, yeah. The mapping is able to slice and dice, excuse me, just move the screen, slice and dice that information into various layers. If I can get it to work. There we are. So we can start to see in the water situation what's been switched back on, what hasn't been switched back on, where the pipeline connections are. We can click and get an assessment, the full assessment of that site. And the other thing is it can take you full circle, so we can click on a link to take us back to SharePoint too. If you're on site, you can update those values. If you just switch the water back on, you can come in here and immediately switch the water back on. So those are the areas that we've touched on to support the council's response to the community. It's been great to be able to use the Hive. It's offered really nice functionality and to incorporate it. And so we had a really brief time to turn around this response, so it's not as fully integrated. There's some manual pushing of buttons to get information from one place to another that wouldn't be ideal in the long term, but to stand it up and be able to get it working in a short term, it's made good use of that tool.
Right, very impressive. Thank you, Suzanne. So yeah, I'm sure it's been of great help to the people involved in the OHAL recovery. So, any questions for Suzanne on that? All right, thank you, Suzanne. So that's the end of the 3 presentations there. So now we can now take a resolution to move into public excluded. Councillor Holding. All in favour, please say aye. That's carried. So I'll just wait for a moment while we leave the live feed, and then we can talk about our public excluded section. Public excluded, of course, for the privacy of the information which is being discussed.